You could
Looks
be
like
on.
we've got Todd on. How you doing, Todd?
Good. How's it going, David?
I'm great. I'm excited. I mean, I feel like I just saw you in New York. Excited to be here with you chatting today.
Yeah,
We got a phenomenal program running, so tough act to follow. But I just mentioned a second ago, I'm excited to get into things with you and just give our community a little bit of a heads up and a rundown on what you've been working on.
what I've been working on.
Well, wait,
What,
before we get into that, can we get into who is Todd Krim, the person, for a second? I'd love for our community to know. I mean, Todd's been a long time friend of Brand Innovators. I'd love for you to share just a little bit about your background before we get into the work.
Sure. God, I have a very diverse background. Let's put it that way. And can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, basically, I'll try to summarize my career in a minute or less, but I'm a healthcare lawyer turned philanthropy consultant. So after practicing law for about 10, 15 years, I started to get into the philanthropy space. Living in LA, of course, I knew the way to make the charity events that I produced really pop and get attention was to get celebrities involved. In fact, it's very apropos that we're speaking here at the LGBTQ plus summit during Pride Month, because the first charity event I ever produced was technically a LGBTQ plus charity event. It was shortly after I came out of the closet. This was in LA, circa 2003-ish. And I had recently become friends with a lot of gay and lesbian celebrities, mostly reality stars. A lot of, in fact, a lot of them, after winning Survivor, The Amazing Race, Fear Factor, etc., moved to LA. And so when I first came out of the closet and I was going out in West Hollywood, I would meet a lot of these LGBTQ plus reality stars, and not just the shows I mentioned, but even Real World and Road Rules, which actually made a really big impression on me, and I think influenced my comfort level in coming out of the closet when I did. Particularly Norman and Danny from the show. But one of the things that came to my mind after meeting all these reality stars was how courageous it was for them to be an out and proud reality star. And in my opinion, really changing people's perspectives and understanding of what it meant to be an LGBTQ plus individual in America. Because when you're seeing someone on a reality show, you're really seeing them for who they really are. And especially I thought MTV and Bruno Murray did a really amazing job showing, the real lives of these people versus an actor pretending to be gay or lesbian on TV or in a movie. And so one of the first events I produced was called The Real Deal, a celebration of out and proud reality stars, because I had the idea of basically bringing 13 gay and lesbian reality stars together in one room in an interview format to share their experience of being an out and proud reality star. And I didn't want to just do this for the sake of doing it. I wanted to have a social purpose. So I recently, before I started planning the event, met the head of donor relations for the City of Hope HIV/AIDS donor outreach program. And I didn't know until I met this person, and I think most people didn't know, that City of Hope actually had an HIV/AIDS donor outreach program. City of Hope is best known for their cancer research. So I thought this was a great way to not only create some interesting content and hopefully educational, inspirational content, but also make a difference at the same time by raising awareness of the work that City of Hope does in the HIV/AIDS arena. So I ended up producing this event. I had Jillian Barbary from Good Day LA host it, and I had Norman, Danny, Ruth, Genesis, and Sophia from Real World Road Rules participate. I also had Riken from The Amazing Race, who won the show with his then husband or partner, Chip. I had some of the cast from Boy Meets Boy. I had the Lane twins from Fear Factor, and it was a really fun event. Jillian basically went down the row of individuals and would interview each of them individually about their experience. And right before they came on, I would show a clip of them on their show. But basically, the event turned out to be such a big success, and people really enjoyed it, that I decided to open it up to all reality stars and all charities. And I ended up forming an organization called Reality Cares, which became essentially an organization whose mission was to help the reality television community give back and raise money and awareness for nonprofits. And again, this was in 2003, when a lot of people in Hollywood, quite frankly, didn't take reality stars very seriously. And it wasn't even necessarily respectable to be on a reality show. Yet here we are all these years later, and you know, reality stars are just as famous, if not more famous, than actors and actresses, and you know, actors and musical artists. Everyone wants to be on a reality show these days. So anyway, that's how I got into this world, and I ended up running Reality Cares, which became Give Back Hollywood for about 10 years. Then that morphed into the Krim Group, which is basically my own consulting company, where I get hired by nonprofits and brands, mostly nonprofits, to get celebrities to support them. And I've had the fortunate experience of bringing celebrities like Zendaya and Kylie Jenner and Lucy Hale around the world to give back and use their influence for good. And then earlier this year, I had the idea of Fluid. Fluid, the original idea behind Fluid was to create a club, bar, lounge type venue here in Miami, where people would feel free and comfortable to come and hang out regardless of how they identify, sexually or otherwise. Basically a label-free environment. And I had the idea because, having lived in LA for 25 years and previously spent time in New York and London, I found that Miami doesn't have many choices, or it doesn't have that many options for people who are fluid / bisexual / whatever you want to call it. So I was going to open up my own place. Then I realized that it'll be a lot faster and cheaper to instead just start throwing fluid parties and partner with existing venues and bring the party to them. So March 1st, I launched Fluid Disco Party. I mean, it's called Fluid, but I couldn't get Fluid on .com or Instagram. So we're Fluid Disco Party technically right now. And we threw our first Fluid Disco Party on March 1st at a club called La Otra in Wynwood. And we had DJ Adora from the Faina, an amazing DJ who dresses in drag, open up. And then I had Ultranate, the globally recognized recording artist, whose song Free, I think, is one of the most iconic songs ever. It's the 25th year anniversary of the song Free, coincidentally. Oh, wow. She headlined and actually DJ'd, not sang. And we ended up getting 500 people to come out that night on a Tuesday night in Miami. And the response was overwhelming. And immediately people were like, when are you going to do this again? So Fluid now has had 6 events over the last 2 or 3 months. We've not only thrown Fluid Disco Party, but we also launched Fluid 54, which is our disco dinner party concept, where you can now, where you can now enjoy dinner and disco music and performances at the same time. And then I expanded it to include a pool party. So we had our fluid pool party a few weeks ago on the rooftop of the Moxie South Beach Hotel. And we are now taking it to the next level again with Virgin Voyages and bringing fluid on Virgin and doing 2 signature fluid parties on the August 19th Dominican Days voyage, which David, you and everyone watching are encouraged to attend. And it's going to be really fun. We have a lot of surprises in store. And yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 20 years.
Wow. So first of all, just to take a step back, I mean, to be, in my head, 2003 was just yesterday, right? But really, we're talking about 20 years ago. A lot of the stuff that you're talking was, to your point, reality TV was perceived differently. The events that you're talking about, that maybe, more common, more prevalent now, didn't exist as, in that level and that saturation back then. So it was, very early on, to that game. And I love it. And of course, sitting at the intersection of, celebrities and, charities and nonprofit organizations where you can align, a celebrity who wants to leverage their credibility, their reputation, their following, their audience, their resources to do good, which thankfully many of them do, and identify that right partnership where they can make a meaningful contribution, impact, raising awareness, raising money, whatever it might be. I mean, that's a beautiful intersection to be in, and feels like a win-win-win. So just first of all, kudos on all of that work. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And you reminded me that Fluid, of course, as with everything I do, has a philanthropic component. In fact, I've already launched Fluid Gives, which is our nonprofit arm. So 10% of whatever I make through Fluid is going to different nonprofits around the world, initially, here locally in Miami, or wherever we do a Fluid party. So, I think it's important for brands, for every brand to make a difference and in whatever way it can. And this is part of our Fluid DNA, is to give back.
I really love that. And I think, I'm excited to see how this grows. So, I mean, that was going to be my next question. Miami, it's obviously your home base. There's a large LGBTQ community. Makes sense that's kind of where you've launched, taking, the Fluid at Sea now with Virgin Voyages, which is really cool. And I think a natural fit again for the brand that you're building. What's the big picture vision for where you want to take Fluid and the brand and the events?
Well, without revealing too much, I plan on, my goal is world domination for Fluid.
Love it.
I don't see why Fluid needs to limit itself geographically. I consider myself a global citizen, and I feel like Fluid is a global brand.
I love that. And I'm excited. You'll have to twist my arm, I guess, too much to get me on a cruise, but that sounds amazing. And we'll definitely see, excited to see that take off or launch. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And, for anyone that's not familiar with Virgin Voyages, there's nothing like it, and it's very fresh in my head because I literally got off the ship a couple hours ago. But I mean, I can't help but use the word luxurious.
Yep.
It's super luxurious. It's like a floating 5-star hotel. And I've already been bringing celebrity friends on the ship. I had just recently, I just spent 5 nights with some of the Teen Wolf cast members, a cast member from 13 Reasons Why, a cast member from Bling Empire, a cast member from the TV show All American. Last month, I bought James Maslow and his Big Time Rush bandmates, and everyone is just obsessed with it.
I love it. So here's what we're gonna have to do, not to get into work mode, but once these parties happen, we're going to bring you back. We're going to have the Virgin Voyages folks, and we're going to do like a little success story case study.
Oh, I
I
would
think
love
that would be
that.
really fun, right? Because again, we talk, we heard a lot earlier today about, authentic, meaningful engagement, especially when it comes to marketing to the LGBTQ community. And obviously, it's Pride Month. We had our event last week. We have this one today. We have another live cast later this month. But just like when it comes to the brands that are successful authentically and engaging with the LGBTQ community, you want to see it throughout the year, right? So it's the same thing for us at Brand Innovators. We want to be talking about these relationships and these efforts throughout the year. So we're happy to devote extra time to it during Pride Month.
Thank
But
you, thank you, and I'm glad you bring that up because frankly, my vision for not just fluid is, I want us to get to the point of being a label-free society. I mean, I think it's great that we celebrate all these months for all the different communities out there, but at the end of the day, we really should just be one giant human community, and we shouldn't have to label and break down everyone by the color of their skin or their sexual orientation. But for now, though, I'm glad that we do have these months and these celebrations, and it is a celebration because I think everyone should be honored and celebrated for who they are.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And to your, I mean, look, I think there's it's one of these things where it's like I wish we didn't have to create months for everyone, but right now, as much as we do, like let's do our best to celebrate everyone, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, that is the vision, right? Hopefully, this at some point we can just celebrate everyone as human beings and accept everyone in all walks of life. So I love that. I love that vision and the inclusivity of what you're building. So let me ask you, just from a marketing perspective, and I know we don't want to get too much into this because you're more of a builder and a human, but now you have to be a marketer, right? You have to promote your fluid parties, and you've been on the receiving end of marketing efforts for the LGBTQ community, and now you're building that community yourself, and getting, you have to raise awareness for your events. What have you learned, or what have you seen might be an effective way? Do you have any thoughts on what makes for more of that meaningful engagement?
I think it shouldn't be forced, I guess, is one thing I would say is, it should be natural, it should be authentic, it should be organic. And I think also these days it should be, you gotta kind of like, is it Apple who had that tagline, think different? I think, I always have prided myself on thinking different and not just going with the rest of the pack. And and I think that's especially true when it comes to marketing to the LGBTQ community, because I would say we are a pretty sophisticated audience. We've been marketed to now heavily, ever since it became trendy and companies recognize, which is probably now for the last 20 years, that brands woke up. And I think, we talked about this earlier, like Absolute is, I would say, one of the pioneers. And so a lot of, and a lot of car companies actually early on, I remember when I came out of the closet, were very smart. I mean, almost any company that advertises in Out Magazine or The Advocate know what they're doing. But their ads, I think are more sophisticated than the ads that you might see in other publications, because again, not to stereotype, but the LGBTQ plus community tend to be very creative, right? So, if you're marketing to creative people, you can't just, throw anything out there. So the standards are very high. And I guess I'm mindful of that when it comes to marketing fluid, because I'm marketing to a sophisticated audience, and I'm trying to do it in a way that is atypical and will get their attention and also make them want to come to the party.
Right. And I think you see that a lot when you're talking about marketing to specific groups or communities. You never want to talk down to them. You never want to, you want them to understand that it's coming from a good place, from an authentic place, right? That the people who came up with, this communication, this strategy represent them, right? That this isn't necessarily just a group of wholly different people who don't really know the audience that they're talking to, right? And you
Yeah.
see through that very easily when it's not authentic.
That's a good point. And I didn't even plan this. It's just happened naturally. But most of the people that the two individuals I'm thinking in particular that do my marketing and graphic design and creative work, they're members of the community.
Right.
So I think I just did that naturally. Not only because they're great at what they do, is because they know the audience.
Right.
And I guess that's one thing that I would say is important for any brand, is you need to know your audience.
Absolutely. I mean, it's always interesting. I mean, you can look any day, especially during June, and different campaigns are, hitting the wire, right? And like you said, there are some brands in the automotive industry. There's Absolute at Pernod Ricard. You have Oreo at Mondelez that have a long history and tradition of efforts or campaigns, and then you may have other brands that are kind of like flash in the pan, and it's very easy, even again, as an outsider, to say, well, that seems like a one-off, right? That's not something that they have a history of doing. And even we had the NFL just last week at LVMH, and we were talking about their work, not just to the LGBTQ community and their Football is for Everyone campaign, but over the last few years, their efforts toward with the Hispanic community, building relationships with millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha, their women's campaign, right? They're clearly making a concerted effort toward building relationships with all sorts of different communities. So you see when it kind of exists in isolation versus when there's a history and track record of these efforts to build relationships. So, and again, I think everybody, starts to see that really quickly. So, I mean, that's really, did you have any last thoughts, anything else you wanted to share about Fluid or the work that you've got coming up? I know you mentioned Virgin, and I'm sure that there's some other interesting partnerships in the works, but how do you see yourself maybe working with brands in the future to get involved with Fluid?
Sure. Well, I think I'm all about collaboration and partnership. So, I'm open to speaking with any brand, as long as they're going to be respectful and, their heart's in the right place and they really want to make a difference. Because again, at the end of the day, Fluid is, while it's primarily about having a good time, it's not exclusively about having a good time. It's about, as I describe it, it's like a disco party with a purpose. And I've also described Fluid as, and most people, or I would say a lot of people in their 20s these days, may not even remember Studio 54, but growing up in New York, of course, it was an iconic venue. And I sort of describe Fluid as Studio 54 reimagined for the next generation. But again, the next generation is, from my experience, much more socially conscious. And that's why, in part, Fluid is a socially conscious brand from the get-go. And I'll just give one last example before we go. Even at the pool party that we had at the Moxie South Beach a few weeks ago, I made sure that we were using our platform and visibility to make a difference. So I invited my friend who started Clean Miami Beach to have a table there. She does beach cleanups here in Miami. So at one point during the pool party, I got up to say a few words, and I made sure that Sophie had an opportunity to talk about the work she does with Clean Miami Beach. And just simple things like that. We can all do our part.
I mean, that's fantastic. And I love the way you describe it, right? The disco party, it's fun, but beneath that, there's purpose, there's community, there's substance, there's meaning, right? So yeah, you can go out there and have fun, but there is a bigger mission to the organization. So I love that. I mean, I think I speak for everyone. We're excited to see where this goes, and we're excited for you, Todd. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, David. And I want to thank you and the rest of the Brand Innovators team. You guys have always been so welcoming and supportive of everything I do. So it's an honor to be participating. I want to thank Chris, my friend Chris from Influential, for inviting me to be part of it as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing our partnership as well.